Greetings. We are the Global Take. With me in our studio is Wesley Alexander Hill, the lead analyst and program manager for Energy Growth and Security Program. I'm the managing director here at the International Tax and Investment Center, and also a senior non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council. We talk about global crises and geopolitics and a lot of energy. So energy is going to be a topic of our conversation today because this morning the White House announced, Wesley, what did they announce?
Well, the Biden administration announced that they were going to accept a suggestion from the Department of Energy that would, in total, result in shutting down or stifling further LNG export facility production, which leads me to my first big question. Why would Biden do this?
My guess is that Biden got a bad advice. And he got a bad advice because they, at the White House, at the political sort of campaign level of the Democratic Party, decided to politicize an important energy issue. And this is a sop to the environmentalist, progressive, leftist wing of the Democratic Party. A lot of my friends are Democrats. They're horrified with this decision, including a gentleman that I had lunch today with, a former senior official of the State Department, very much a Democrat, but he worked energy issues and he understands how damaging it is. So this is not a bipartisan decision. It's not a partisan decision. It is a political sop to get more support from the left in the crucial presidential election.
So you hinted at something that's actually very interesting to me. So a senior official at the State Department, what impact is this going to have, especially for America's international relations, its international standing?
Well, it's an excellent question, Wesley, because this is not a good decision in terms of our standing with our allies, and I would mention Europe, NATO members, fellow democracies, first and foremost, but not only. In Asia, U.S. is exporting a lot of natural gas to Japan, South Korea, and guess what? Even China and Taiwan. So this is not a good signal because our friends and allies will say, hey, you just stepped in after Russia was blackmailing us after the reinvasion of Ukraine in February 2022. We're almost a year, 2 years anniversary of the Russian invasion coming. And one of the great achievements of the Biden administration was to redirect at least some of our LNG from Asia to Europe, and together with other exporters, Australia, Qatar, Nigeria, Algeria, Angola, the deficit of gas, and it was a huge deficit in Europe, 100 billion cubic meters, a tremendous amount, and I cannot calculate it in cubic feet, but it is probably 100 billion, 50 billion tons. Maybe 50 million tons. 50 million tons of LNG, and Europeans are relying upon us, the Americans, to export this important transition fuel that, by the way, reduces a lot of emissions that people are worried about.
So you did a pretty robust tour of a lot of the international actors and how they're going to be impacted by this. But what about our adversaries that are currently, most of which are currently exporting LNG, or even not necessarily adversaries, but potentially just semi-unfriendly actors? What other things can you say about that?
Let's start with Russia. So Russian piped gas, the pipelines were sanctioned after the invasion of Ukraine. That gas, with some exceptions, was pushed out of the European market. I think the exceptions are Hungary, Austria, maybe Slovakia, I'm not sure. The landlocked countries that cannot receive LNG or do not have pipelines from other areas, like from Norway or from the Mediterranean somewhere. So Russia is boosting its LNG production because Russian LNG is not sanctioned. And they have a lot of gas in Siberia that instead of shipping it by pipe, they're putting it up in the Arctic for the liquefaction facilities. It's a bit more expensive to export it, but they're building that capacity to the point where by 2030, 2035, they may have the same 100 BCM, 100 billion cubic meters that they lost from pipe be available for the global market. That's point number one. Point number two, Qatar. Qatar was financing the terrorist organization Hamas that committed a horrible mass terror act, slaughter, killed more than 1,000 civilians, took hostages, tortured people. Qatar is not a democracy. It's an emirate, a kingdom. And Qatar is supporting Muslim Brotherhood, hardly a democratic organization throughout the Muslim world and especially in the Arab world. So Qatar is a huge producer of LNG. So is Algeria, also not a democracy. I think that having American molecules in the market, at least that's what a lot of my European colleagues are telling me, having American molecules in the market increased European energy security, strengthened the ties between the US and Europe, the transatlantic ties that exist for over 100 years since World War I, when America for the first time came and saved Europe from the threat of German imperialism then, and then in World War II from the threat of Nazism, and in the Cold War from the threat of Soviet communism. So these ties are strong, they're long, and they need to be shored up for the foreseeable future to keep Europe free and whole.
So we've talked a lot about the international scene, and at the very beginning, though, we talked about why is Biden doing this, domestic politics. Who are the winners and losers in the domestic economy for this, and what impact is this going to have on the wider economy?
First of all, I do not agree with the argument of those environmentalists who try to kill LNG as a transition fuel. The transition to renewable energy is taking more than we wish. If we could have all of our energy coming from solar, wind, geothermal, etc., I would be the first one to vote for that. However, the technology is not there yet. We do not have the storage capacity, first of all. When the wind is not blowing, when the sun is not shining, especially at night. If you have a night with no wind, quiet night, it may be nice for a walk, but you don't generate energy from renewables. So if they kill it, the autocracies that are exporting, we mentioned that already, the Russians, the Qataris, and others may be benefiting domestically. I would say solar, wind, maybe nuclear. Nuclear is in a very interesting phase. We'll talk about U.S. nuclear and the disaster both parties made out of our civilian nuclear energy, but not today. And I would say coal benefits from that because coal-powered stations are still around. And if we have a deficit of energy, a scarcity of energy, we will be unfortunately burning coal like the Europeans did when they shut their nuclear and did not get the Russian gas. The Germans powered up a few coal stations. So these are not the actors you want domestically. And these decisions, I must say, have a strange quality. For example, when the Obama administration killed the Keystone XL oil pipeline from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico, to the American coast of Texas and Louisiana, the beneficiaries were the Chavista regime in Venezuela, because the refineries on the U.S. Gulf are configured for heavy crude, which is the Venezuelan crude. So you need to always look, when you make big policy decisions, what are the consequences of the decisions in the longer term.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to wrap things up. Thank you very much for answering all of our questions.
Thank you, Wesley, and please join, please subscribe, and stay with us for future podcasts.